inaugural award. And I absolutely love her. And in my next life, I want to be Carrie Morgridge. And tall, too, with long legs. Carrie is amazing. I'm so humbled that she came to be our keynote speaker because she's currently training for her 9th Ironman. Okay. 10th. Oh, my God. All right. So, yes. So, and she just came. Well, I won't steal her thunder, but she had to switch her day to this day. And I'll let her tell you all about it. But she's an amazing woman, and please read her biography because she really is amazing. So,
good morning. Good morning. Dr. Massey, congratulations on the Aspen Prize. The very first thing I said to him was, congratulations on the Aspen Prize. This is how we're all connected, 1 degree away from each other. When the Aspen Prize was invented, my father-in-law was one of the first judges. So it was shocking when he said Valencia College in your own backyard is actually going to win the first Aspen Prize. And I am beyond thrilled that the best college in the community college, right? Or are you 4-year? We're 4 years. So we're technically a university, but we're a college. But you're an innovator. So this is number 1, and it's in my own backyard. I live in Stuart, Florida. So I love, love, love this community, and I love Debbie. And also, by the way, I was looking at all the women in here. I love Impact 100. So if you all don't know what Impact 100 is, you need to see Debbie afterwards. This is where 100 women get together, they give $1,000 each, and they make a $100,000 transformational gift. Now, Pensacola, they have a little head start on us. They have 1,500 members. They are changing their community with women just like you, making transformative gifts. So, I'm here today to talk about disruption, because I'm a disruptor. However, in your industry, disruption is a negative word. So I want you to think of yes and. Yes, it is a bad word in our industry, but it's a great word when you're talking with Dr. Massey on how he's trying to change lives. He is changing lives. On how he's changing the collegiate system, on how he's partnering with industry and colleges to make our workforce bigger and better. Dr. Massey, I loved how you shared the part where you completely transformed this room into a bedroom for 300 amazing American citizens that are working each and every day to protect our lives. So we can't not have a great conversation without talking about safety, right? And what you're doing for our public safety is unbelievable. And I met 2 of the most amazing officers as we rolled in today. So again, if you can't hear my gratitude on how grateful I am to have the #1 college in my own community and to have the police and the security here, you don't understand how much I love this community. And I am training for my 10th Ironman, so I just want to share on that for a second. Because until Debbie brought me here to explore Fort Pierce a little bit more, I bike from Stuart, Florida to Fort Pierce and back almost every day. I thought that little turnaround was the city of Fort Pierce. It took us 27 more minutes through your big city to get to this campus. So I haven't spent a lot of time in Fort Pierce, but I'm in awe of the good going on. So as Debbie said, I'm really lucky. I have a lot of open doors. My father-in-law took a company called Cisco Systems public. So I spend every waking moment of my life breathing philanthropy because I have an unbelievable opportunity, and I don't want to let my in-laws down, and I don't want to let my husband down. So let me talk to you about my 4 pillars of philanthropy, because I asked Debbie, what should I talk about today? And the only way I know how to talk with you is about what I know. And the only thing I know is how to be a disruptor. So I have about 600 pillars of philanthropy, but Debbie, just like you, has given me a very short time to share my 600 pillars. So I boiled it down to 4. Let me start with the first one. Well, here's all 4. But I'm going to touch on each of them. Time and patience. Because I am an Ironman triathlete, and I live in the now, and there's urgency. For every child we don't help, for every family we don't help, I have an urgent mode to help them. And how can you not? But what taught me about being a great disruptor is that you have to give an organization, you have to give your cause, you have to give your program time. So be thoughtful about what you want to change, and think about time, and then think about patience. I am not a patient person. I want it now. We live in a microwave society where everybody wants the results now. For every organization, when you think you're going to make changes in a life, you think you want it now, but you have to have some patience. A perfect example of this is we were working with Dave Krepko up in Orlando, Florida. And Dave proposed a new program for me. The SNAP benefit program is not on the bus line. So families who really needed a hand up, not a handout, but they needed that safety net for whatever they were going through. They were already working 1 or 2 jobs, and they would have to take off of work to go to the SNAP office. So Dave proposed to me that instead of our citizens going to the SNAP office, what if we flipped it and we had rovers that when they called the 211 United Way line, went to them? Could you imagine if you could go to each of your clients instead of your clients coming to you? How would that change? What would that look like? And could we get there? So Dave, the city of Orlando was pulling down about $1 million in SNAP benefits. And I can tell you with time and patience, they're now they've pulled down over $100 million with his thoughtful disruption, with his innovation. This is the most important part. Call on your network. We all have a network, right? First, Debbie's in our network. Dr. Massey's in our network. But think about all the people that are in your network. The biggest advice I can give to you right now is to use LinkedIn. How many here has a LinkedIn account? Am I not doing it right? Oh. How many of you here, can you raise your hands, do you have a LinkedIn account? Do you actively use it? Use your network. And so I have a couple of stories about how important networks are. Like I said, I have a lot of open doors, and I'm incredibly blessed. So Bill and Melinda Gates invited me yesterday to the UN Goalkeepers event, and that's where I was yesterday. Holy crap, is that a good network? I met the most amazing people doing amazing things because Bill and Melinda have already vetted them for us. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of using my network, and then you take it from where you want. So like I was saying, I eat, breathe, and sleep philanthropy. So I have 10,000 hours in my field. So I know a good thing, and I know what I'm looking for because I'm always on the hunt for innovation that can scale. And in innovation to scale, I've just met with an organization called Merit America that was at the United Nations in New York City. Merit America fits perfectly in with IRSC because it's a partnership to upskill families. These are probably some of your families. There are 100 million people right now that they're at a dead-end job making $22,000 a year. They might have graduated high school, and they might have had a little bit of college, and now they have student loan debt. So they can't go back to college because they've already maxed their Pell eligibility. Merit America is upskilling them in 5-week programs, exactly like what we have here, to get families back on track to be self-sustaining with dignity. Their first cohort graduated. Average pay going in was $24,000. 5 weeks later, average pay exiting, $48,000. Imagine what that would do for your families if they could be self-sustaining and self-reliant. Imagine if your families were making $48,000 a year. So we're investing huge in Merit America. The other part of our network is that I want to share, you don't always have to write a huge check to make a huge difference. So the second organization I met with is called Shatterproof. Shatterproof works in addiction. And you've never heard of them because we haven't launched them yet. But they're just on the cusp. So you're going to hear it first and you're going to hear it now because you're the first organization that I've ever shared this with because I just learned of them myself. So what Shatterproof is Shatter stands for the families that are shattered when addiction comes into the family. And what they shared with me, and Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but 1 in 4 families have a family member that has addiction. That's shattering. Proof is actually what this gentleman discovered. His name is Gary. It's so new I don't even know Gary's last name. But Gary is a businessman, and what he shared with us is that the data and the research American citizens have given with their taxpayer dollars to have a ton of research done. Now, I know we do research here, right? We do research here. We need to continue that research because we live in a modern times, and just like Dr. Massey said, there's new pop drugs coming on the market every day. However, there's also some great research, but here's the problem. It's sitting on a shelf in medical schools. It's sitting on a shelf at research institutions. It's sitting on a shelf. So what they did was they took their business acumen and they partnered with a McKinsey guy who knows how to boil it down to the top 5 things. Because apparently right now in drug addiction or in addiction, there is 100, 200, 300 viable things that you could do for families to get them off addiction. I didn't know this. Again, this is new for me. So you guys are the experts. I'm just like dabbling, I'm scratching, starting to get into it and learn about it. They boiled it down to the top 5 things you could do. So we're going to be working with them, but in a totally different capacity, because they're not going to need my money. They're going to need my network. How do they scale? How do we get this out? How do I have this conversation over and over and over, not just here in Fort Pierce, but how do we have this conversation in Washington, D.C.? How do we have it in New York? How do we have it in the top 15 cities? How do we have it in Chicago? And so that's where I start to call on my network, because if I don't have the answer, there is somebody in my network who does. So I'll say that again. If you don't have the answer, go to your network to find the person who can help you. And that's why LinkedIn is so important. So when I wanted to do a project, I recently discovered Bangladesh and how horrific their refugee camp is. I put it on my LinkedIn, who's working in refugee camps, and can you call me? I got 25 calls in the first 10 minutes. That's the power of the network. And then lastly, I'm going to share a third story because Bob Zacchio from Project Lift is here. I discovered Bob 6 years ago when I moved here. And I discovered him through our network. I was partners with House of Hope and Elizabeth Barbella. And Elizabeth said, you have to meet this rock star. And that's how it happens, right? We were the anonymous donor for a very, very, very long time. But I think the cat's out of the bag, right? Yeah, pretty much. What was so great about Bob is that I saw potential in him that he didn't see in himself. And I saw him with the ability to scale. But again, that's not what I do. That's not my sweet spot. My sweet spot is finding the human potential and then calling on my network to scale. So immediately after I met with Bob, we introduced him to an organization called Stand Together. Bob is a graduate of the Stand Together program, but has also grown exponentially from one site in a really not so fun building into 5 sites and still growing all over our state. But why I share this and why it's so important, it's that Bob is affecting and changing lives each and every day because he has the ability to scale. And that's so powerful in today's day and age, is that a lot of us might be stuck in helping 10 kids, 20 kids, 30 kids, and Bob now has 400 kids and growing, and the need is there. So call on your network, because it's going to open up everything you can do. Not one of us can do it together, as Dr. Massey said earlier. It's all of us in this together, and together we're stronger. The third thing that a disruptor will do is fail. But fail forward and then finish. So how many of you have heard, I'm just a dissertation away from my PhD? It's true, though. For me, finishing actually should be first, but it's last. I'm the author of 2 books, and by the way, I donated for all of you my first book called Every Gift Matters. Please, please, please take a copy home if you don't have one already, from the Impact 100 that Debbie had me also donate my books to. But selfish plug, I'm working on a third called Courage Money. But on the finish, I meet people all the time that have a great idea. Great ideas are wonderful, but it's how you implement it and then how you finish it. Don't forget to finish your great idea. If you think it's a great idea at first, and I percolate on this on my bike or in the pool, I think of a great idea, and then sometimes it falls off. Sometimes I don't go with that idea. So give yourself some time to think about if you really want to do it. But then if you really want to do it, you go for it. Just like Debbie wanted to open Impact 100. She just went for it. And now, her new goal is 300 members. This is the most important thing I think I can share. And Dr. Massey, again, you are stealing my speech, is the compounded results. Oh, and also, I should go back one. I could say you also failed forward. When you got into applying for the Aspen Prize 12 years ago, you were in the top 100. And then he failed forward, and then he failed forward, and then he failed forward until he won. That's what failing forward means. The last thing that our organization is really looking at is, for every project we touch, we want to impact 1 million people. What I was measuring was something different at the beginning than what I measure now. So we now give organizations up to 10 years to touch that 1 million people. One of my projects was this would be more of a typical philanthropist project. We opened a new wing at Denver Museum of Nature and Science in Denver, 126,000 square feet. But the numbers, the attendance rates, went from 1.2 million a year to 1.6 million a year. It's the largest family membership museum in the world. What I love about what they're doing is they didn't just stop with go-to. Have you guys heard of Blue Apron, where they deliver the food right to your home? They're using the Blue Apron model for their STEM education now. And for $25, an educator can pay for a box. They ship it out on Monday, totally pre-ready to go, kits for the kids, tons of STEM education. And on Thursdays after school, the teacher has to mail it back. Think about how your organization might be different if you knocked off Blue Apron and you could go to the families directly to their door in a non-invasive way, give them a laptop, give them what they need, give them the services through Zoom, because Zoom is free. What would that look like? Imagine how much more time you might have doing face-to-face with your clients or your families. So think about measuring differently in your organization. I'm going to go back to the food industry with Dave Krepko. So I'm excited that Dave's pulling down $100 million for families in Orlando for the SNAP benefits. But that's not what we're measuring anymore. What we're measuring is how many families we got off of SNAP benefits. That's the dignity piece. That's what we were doing wrong, and that's how we failed forward. The failed forward piece is how do we work with case managers, like Up Against Poverty is here. How do we work with them to have case managers actually in their offices where they're helping people get off of that assistance and back to work for a greater America? We know that putting people back to work is the best thing that we can do for your dignity, for your purpose, for fulfillment. And so that's what our foundation really is starting to focus on. We've had good success. I want to have great success. My bar is high. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for what you're doing today. I'm just starting to learn about addiction. Bob's been coaching me a little bit along the way. I still don't quite understand it. Now with my new friend Gary and how he's doing it and how he's changing policy, Gary's so innovative. He's already worked with the top 16 insurance providers across the country, and they've all changed their policy to support addiction behavior in families. So we have a long way to go. We're just scratching the surface, but that's what makes me so excited. So I'm going to end there, and then now I get to introduce the next person who I brought from Denver, Colorado. You're welcome. So what are we doing in education? What we're doing in education is everything up here in my 4 pillars. I actually walk the walk I talk. So over a decade ago, I did a site visit where I saw an interactive whiteboard in the classroom. And what got me so jazzed was that I saw the student engagement go sky high. And why it was so sky high is an interactive whiteboard was the first time I ever saw the teacher at the back of the class and the students actually teaching off the interactive whiteboard in the front of the class. So the student became the teacher. So then we had to figure out, how do we roll out technology for the state of Colorado? We did 10,000 interactive whiteboards in a short time period of 10 years. But how do we train them? And what I found, and no offense, is that the district training was actually crap. And so I said, you can get an interactive whiteboard, district or whoever, whatever school, and we're agnostic. We like all schools. We like faith-based schools. We like public schools. We like charter schools. We're agnostic to who we train. It's about getting to the kids. And where we saw our disruption was changing how the educators thought. And it was about how they taught. And in our world, in the education world, that's called pedagogy. So they would have to come in and take our training, and we would do it once a year. And I had this one exceptional school in Adams 12 called STEM Launch. Kelly Loth was the principal. And what started happening for us as we built our relationship was that I kept going to her and saying, have you heard of this program? Have you tried this program? Because I was getting inundated with questions that I didn't have the answer to. So I was using my network, which was Kelly, to try something out. Here's what was so impressive. 3 weeks later, she was back on the phone with me. This is shit. This works. We love this so much, we're buying it. This is good, this is bad. And I trusted her. I trusted her value because she was the expert, not me. So we kept working together. Then she became my #1 presenter at these annual convenings. Then the annual convenings weren't enough because remember how I said you have to go to the people? So then we were doing 10 cities a year. That is really draining for an organization that has this many employees. Me, my husband, and then eventually I hired a consultant, John Farnham. So we kept going back to Kelly, She was having phenomenal results. And then I finally just said to her one day, can you just come work for us? And I'm thinking about spinning off what I'm doing with the interactive whiteboards and really trying your model. I love what you're doing with pedagogy, and you're going to talk a lot about that today, right? So I loved what she was doing, but it was that key component of flipping K-12. What does K-12 serve? And how are we preparing students for the future? And we're honestly not doing a good job at all. But Kelly was putting industry into her classroom. And so she's going to talk a lot about how she flipped K-12 upside down. And then I'm hoping you're going to talk about how you scale it. If not, I'll come back and share with you how we're helping her to scale it. But we knew that MindSpark Learning had to be its own entity. I am a very strong woman, just like probably most of you or all of you are in this room. And Kelly's a strong woman. So we knew she had to be the CEO. We knew that I had to take a step back to let her fly, to let her have these great ideas. And she comes up, I've charged her to come up and launch a great idea at least once a year. So every year I already know that as our CEO, she is thinking about what's next. How can we make it better? How can we make it bigger? How can we make it stronger? So what I was most excited, why I insisted that Kelly fly down, is that MindSpark Learning trains teachers all over the globe. And St. Lucie Public Schools actually had 4 recipients that went through the MindSpark Learning training this summer. I personally have not met them yet, and I haven't been to their school. So I'm hoping in the next 30 days, now that I'm back, that we can get to their school and I can actually see the difference. Kelly will share with you the data that they've had and the efficacy of what they're doing. It's over the charts amazing. So Kelly's a little shy. She's a little nervous. So I know you're going to give a warm round of applause for Kelly Loth.
Well, no pressure, right?